There is a warm, amber glow that remains long after the fire of the struggle has gone out. We tell the stories of hope and warmth that survive even the coldest winters of life. Hit subscribe today and keep the glow of great storytelling alive in your heart.
My brother left his shoes by the door again. I noticed it the moment I came home. Size 12 Nikes, caked with mud, dropped right in the middle of the entryway like the floor was his personal storage unit. Like someone else would deal with it. Someone always did. That someone was me. I set my bag down, stepped around the shoes, and walked into a kitchen that smelled like burnt cheese and someone else's ambition. My brother was on the couch, controller in hand, television loud enough to rattle the cabinet handles. My mother was at the stove, stirring something without looking up. My father was reading the newspaper he had already read twice this week. No one said hello. I had been at work since 6 in the morning. Let me tell you what kind of house I grew up in. My brother, who I will call Kyle, was the baby, the golden one, the boy my mother had prayed for after 2 girls. My older sister had escaped to Seattle the moment she turned 22. Smart woman. That left me, the middle one, the one who stayed, the one who helped, the one who quietly became the solution to every problem the family could not solve on its own. I paid 1/3 of the mortgage. I covered the grocery overages when my mother's card declined at the register. I scheduled my father's specialist appointments because he never remembered to write them down. I dropped off and picked up and filled out and followed up. I was not asked. I was expected. There is a difference, and once you learn to feel it, you cannot unfeel it. Kyle worked, technically. He had a job at a warehouse 3 days a week and spent the other 4 telling everyone he was figuring out his next move. He had been figuring it out for 2 years. While he figured, he ate my groceries, used my streaming passwords, and borrowed my things without returning them in the same condition they were loaned. The laptop was the line I should have drawn sooner. I had bought it 14 months ago. A Dell XPS, 15-inch, $2,800 with the extended warranty I paid for separately. I used it for my freelance graphic design work, the income stream that quietly covered 1/3 of my expenses and all of my sanity. It was mine. I had bought it on a Tuesday afternoon, carried it home in a bag, charged it overnight, and felt a specific kind of pride that comes from owning something you worked for without anyone's help. I should have put a lock on my bedroom door the day I brought it home. I did not. The first time Kyle borrowed it, I found it on the coffee table with 4 new browser tabs open and the charging cable wrapped the wrong direction. I unwrapped it, closed the tabs, and said nothing. The second time, he had moved it to his room overnight without asking. I knocked on his door at 11 p.m. to retrieve it for a deadline. He handed it over without looking up from his phone. I said nothing. The third time, I said something. "Please ask before you take it," I told him. He blinked at me like I had said something in a foreign language. "I was just using it for a minute. You had it for 6 hours. I didn't think you needed it." That was the sentence that lived in the back of my head from that point forward. I didn't think you needed it. Not "I'm sorry," not "I'll ask next time." Just the quiet assumption that whatever I had was available to whoever wanted it, whenever they wanted it, for however long they decided. My needs were a footnote. My things were communal property. My objections were inconveniences. I started keeping the laptop in my bag. This worked until it didn't. On a Thursday evening in November, I came home to find my bag open on my bed. I keep my bag in my room. My door had been closed when I left. I stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the open zipper, the moved contents, the absence of the familiar weight at the bottom. I found Kyle in the living room with my laptop on the coffee table in front of him, showing something on the screen to his friend whose name I never bothered to learn. They were laughing about something. A beer, not mine but still, was on the table without a coaster. Kyle. My voice was very calm. I had learned that calm voice through years of practice. He looked up, unbothered. "I needed to show Marcus something real quick. I'll give it back when I'm done." "You went into my room." He shrugged. "Your door wasn't locked." His friend shifted on the couch. I looked at my laptop. I looked at my brother. I thought about the deadline I had at 8 the next morning. I thought about the client folder open on that screen that contained work I had not backed up in 3 days. I thought about the beer without a coaster. I picked up the laptop, closed it, and took it to my room. I locked the door from the inside, sat on my bed, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I did not go back out that evening. I did not say anything to my parents. What would I have said? That a grown man walked into my room and took my property? My mother would have told me Kyle didn't mean anything by it. My father would have looked up from his newspaper just long enough to say, "Just talk it out." They had been handing me those answers for years, smooth, round words that solved nothing and asked me to shrink a little more each time I accepted them. But I did something else that night. I opened the insurance portal for the extended warranty I had purchased on the laptop. I verified that the policy was registered in my name. I checked the terms of the accidental damage coverage. I took photographs of the laptop from every angle, lid, keyboard, ports, base, and emailed them to myself with the date and time in the subject line. I wrote a short note in my Files app, laptop documented, no damage, November 14th. I did not know exactly what I was preparing for. I just knew that I was preparing. 2 weeks later, my mother knocked on my door on a Saturday morning. I was in the middle of a project, headphones on, and I could tell from the particular cadence of her knock, 3 short, 1 pause, 1 more, that she wanted something she already knew I would not want to give. I opened the door. "Kyle has a job interview," she said. Her voice was the warm one, the one she used when she needed my cooperation. "On Monday. He needs to put together a portfolio to show them." I waited. "He needs the laptop for the weekend." I looked at her. She looked at the space just past my shoulder in the way she did when she knew the request was unreasonable and was hoping I wouldn't name it directly. "I have a deadline Monday morning," I said. "You can share it. You're not using it every minute. I use it every day. It's just a weekend." She paused. "He's trying, you know. It would be nice if you supported that." There it was, the pivot. From Kyle needs to you should support. In 3 sentences, the conversation had moved from a request to a verdict. I was not being asked. I was being assigned. I thought about saying no. I had said no before, in smaller ways, and what followed was 2 days of cold dinners and a father who suddenly had opinions about my attitude. I was 31 years old and still calculating the cost of boundaries in my childhood home like I was 12. That is the thing about families that take. They don't just take objects, they take your sense of what's normal. I said I would think about it. My mother nodded and left. I closed the door and sat back down at my desk. I looked at my laptop for a minute. I thought about Kyle's portfolio, which I was fairly certain did not exist. I thought about Monday morning. I thought about the beer without a coaster. Then I did something very deliberate. I backed up every file on the laptop to my external hard drive. Every client folder, every working file, every font pack and plugin I had installed over 14 months of careful curation. I backed it up twice to 2 different drives and verified both copies opened correctly. I went to my insurance app. I added the accidental damage writer I had been meaning to upgrade for months. It cost $42 extra for the year and covered spills, drops, and power surges. I paid it on my phone in about 90 seconds. I enabled the location tracking on the device. Then I walked into the living room and handed my brother the laptop. "Be careful with it," I said. That was all. He took it without looking up. "Yeah, sure." I went back to my room and worked from my backup drive on my old tablet for the rest of the afternoon. Slower, more awkward, but functional. I had a plan. I was not loaning something I was not prepared to lose. What I was not prepared for was how fast it happened. Sunday evening, I was making tea in the kitchen when Kyle came in holding the laptop by the lid, one-handed, screen tilted, the way you hold something when you're not thinking about what it is. His friend from the couch was with him again and they were both laughing about something that had nothing to do with any portfolio. I saw it before it happened. Kyle set the laptop on the counter, next to the sink, still talking to his friend, and reached across it to grab a glass from the cabinet. His elbow caught the cord of the electric kettle. The kettle went sideways. The water had not finished cooling. The sound was very small. A short hiss, a soft thud as Kyle grabbed the kettle, and then silence, except for his friend saying "oh" and Kyle saying "shoot" in a voice that was more annoyed than concerned. I looked at the laptop. A thin line of steam was still rising from the keyboard. Kyle looked at me. "It was an accident," he said immediately. I set down my mug. I crossed to the counter. I opened the laptop. The screen flickered once, twice, and then displayed a pattern that is not a pattern you ever want to see, the diagonal lines of a display that has lost communication with its own logic board. I closed it gently. "I'll get it fixed," Kyle said. He said it the way people say things they do not intend to follow through on. "I'll cover it." He had $340 in his checking account. I knew this because I had helped him set up his banking app 8 months ago and he had never changed the shared access. My mother came in from the hallway. She must have heard the "oh" and the "shoot." She looked at the laptop, looked at Kyle, looked at me. "What happened?" "Kettle fell," Kyle said. "It was an accident." My mother looked at me. And then, in the tone I had heard my whole life, the one that folded blame into sympathy so seamlessly you almost missed it, she said, "You knew how he is. You shouldn't have left it on the counter." I stood very still. "I didn't put it on the counter," I said. "You left it out. I handed it to him in the living room on Friday. You know he's careless. You should have made sure it was put away properly." She was already turning back toward the hallway. "Get it looked at Monday. It might be fine." It was not fine. I did not raise my voice. I did not slam a door. I went to my room, sat down at my desk, and picked up my phone. I opened the insurance app. I opened the photos I had taken on November 14th. Undamaged laptop. Time-stamped. Registered in my name. I opened the terms of my accidental damage policy, which I had read twice and understood clearly. I filed the claim that night. The claim process was direct. I uploaded the photos, the purchase receipt, the warranty registration, and a brief description of the incident. I noted the date of damage, the nature of the accident, liquid spill to keyboard, and submitted. The portal confirmed receipt within the hour. By Monday morning, I had a response. Full replacement approved. A prepaid shipping label for the damaged unit and a new device ship date of 4 to 7 business days. I printed the confirmation email. I folded it neatly. I set it on the kitchen counter. The same counter, next to the coffee maker, where my mother would see it when she came down. I went to work. When I came home, my mother was in the kitchen. The printed email was in her hand. Her expression was the particular kind of tight that meant she had been holding a conversation in her head all day and had arranged it into something that sounded like logic. "You filed an insurance claim," she said. "Yes. Without talking to us. It's my laptop. It's my insurance policy." She set the paper down. "Kyle said he was going to handle it." "With what money?" She did not answer. "He has $300, I said. "A replacement is $2,800. The insurance covered it. There's nothing to handle." "It looks bad," my mother said. "Filing a claim over an accident. Like, we can't take care of our own problems." I looked at her. I had looked at her this way before, across the same kitchen, over similar conversations, and I had always been the one to look away first, to soften, to find the version of the truth that was easier for everyone else to hold. I did not look away. "You told me this morning," I said slowly, "that I should have put the laptop away because I know how Kyle is, so you already knew this was a risk. I protected myself from a risk. That's not a family problem. That's called being prepared." Her jaw tightened. "The claim is closed," I said. "The replacement ships Thursday. Kyle doesn't owe me anything. Everything is handled." I took the printed email back from the counter, folded it again, and put it in my bag. Later that evening, Kyle knocked on my door. He came in the way he always did, half the conversation already started, tone preloaded with a casual defensiveness that was meant to look like remorse. "I just want you to know I feel bad about the laptop," he said. I waited. "But you didn't have to make it into a whole thing. Mom's upset." I looked at him for a moment. He was 26 years old, standing in my doorway, telling me that filing an insurance claim on my own property had caused a problem for someone else. "I didn't make it into anything," I said. "I replaced what was mine. That's the end of it." "She thinks you're doing it to prove a point?" "Maybe the point proves itself." He didn't have an answer for that. He stood for another few seconds, then left. I closed the door. The laptop arrived Thursday. I unboxed it, registered the new warranty immediately, enabled location tracking, and took a full set of photographs. Every angle, time-stamped, emailed to myself. Then I walked to my bedroom door and installed a key lock. The kind that requires a physical key, the kind that does not care how many people live in the house, or who grew up here, or what anyone feels entitled to by virtue of being family. I put the key on my keychain. My mother noticed the lock the next morning and stood outside my closed door for a moment. I heard her stop. I heard the small sound of her testing the handle. I heard her walk away without saying anything. For the first time in a very long time, I felt the particular quiet of something no longer available for the taking. I had not yelled. I had not threatened. I had not sent a single text that could be screenshot and shown to the rest of the family as evidence of my cruelty. I had simply done, months ago, what should have been obvious. I had made sure that the things I owned were protected by more than the assumption that people who loved me would treat them carefully. They had not treated them carefully, and I had not needed them to. At dinner that week, my mother made a comment about how cold the house had felt lately. My father nodded without looking up. Kyle was on his phone. No one looked at me. I ate my dinner, washed my plate, and went back to my room. I had a client revision due in the morning. I opened my laptop, and went to work. There is a version of this story where I sit at that table and explain myself, where I walk them through every decision, every boundary, every time I said nothing when I should have said something, where I ask them to understand and wait for an apology that reorders how they see me. I used to tell that version, it does not go anywhere useful. This version ends here. I own a laptop. I insured it in my own name. When it was damaged, I handled it. Not loudly, not dramatically, not in a way that required anyone else's permission or participation. The people who expected me to absorb the cost of their carelessness found, instead, a closed door and a clean resolution. Not every act of self-protection is a war. Some of them are just a $42 insurance rider and a key on your keychain. I did not do it to hurt them. I did not do it to teach them a lesson. I did it because I finally understood something I should have known much earlier. The people who see your preparedness as a threat were always planning to be unprepared at your expense. I stopped being available for that. That is the whole story. That is all of it. I didn't harden. I didn't leave. I didn't issue an ultimatum or write a letter or stage a confrontation that gave anyone the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. I just quietly made sure that the next time someone reached for what was mine, there was nothing left to take. That is not coldness. That is the only kind of warmth I have left for myself.